Good morning, everyone. Dave here. Happy Monday. Today is February 3rd, so we are in the second month of 2020 already. So time is flying by. So the first thing that I want to do is give a couple of updates about some things. So last week you heard me talk about started talking about my collection and things I'm going to do. I'm going to take these off with my gaming collection. And so the first thing is that a little bit of an update. 18 Lilliput was sold. So that is one of the games that was on my list. I was thinking about some stuff, and then after further consideration, I was like, no, I really don't think that I want to play like the 18xx style games. So I put it up for sale. I literally sold it like in 5 minutes, so it was gone. Um, Man, I really can't see. Oh, I better put these back on. Sorry. Anyways, so on the initial thing, 18 Lilliput is gone. A couple other things that were on the thing. I guess my collection wasn't completely updated. A couple of keepers are 5211 from Next Move Games. That's a really really cool card game, and then Abyss. So that was good. I forgot that I had that one not listed. I have it. Abyss has been kind of funny. It's coming in and out of my collection a couple times. I like the game a lot, but I've had opportunities to trade it and then have a pretty good deal on a trade and then find it for cheap and get it back and vice versa and all that kind of stuff. So, anyways. Before I get into the games that we played for the week, let me talk about something with money. So I have been trying to limit my purchases for board games. I don't have a problem with spending the money, like in terms of like an addiction or anything like that. But I am being more mindful about what I spend and what I'm putting into the hobby because there's other things that I want to do. And so I have decided to cut down on my spending. So for January, I made 2 purchases. Now, let me preface this with saying that the amount I've sold a bunch of games over the past few weeks, and got rid of things in my collection. I actually sold enough that the way that I'm thinking with budgeting, I have enough money to fund my gaming budget for the entire year and have money left over. So anything that if I do make purchases, and that's making, and I would say if I budgeted $60 a month on games, which is not going to happen. I'm not going to spend that much money. I don't think I will, because early on in the year, I've got some things that I like, and then I've got nothing else that I'm really looking at for right now. But anyways, so any money that I'm spending has been coming through. It's basically within the hobby recycling itself. So anyways, I made 2 purchases in January, and both of them were expansions, so they weren't even new games. So I spent a total of like, I think $51 with tax and everything. So the first thing that I bought was I bought this expansion for Dominion. Now I have guilds already, but I wanted Cornucopia, and it was actually cheaper to get this where it's in a double box than it was to try and buy just Cornucopia by itself. So the nice thing though is the edition of guilds that I have was the original printing, and they have made some changes for the wording. And so now instead of saying take a coin, it's +1 coffers, because a lot of the other variations of Dominion, they are using the coins for multiple different things. So I purchased this, and I purchased the Kraken expansion for Abyss. Those were the 2 things that I purchased in January. And I made my spending for February the other day, and the only reason was because there was stock running low on something, and I wanted to be able to make sure that I got it. The 2 things that I bought for January was I bought the Leviathan expansion for Abyss, and I purchased the Ticket to Ride map pack number 7, which has Japan and Italy. Ticket to Ride is one of my favorite games. I love all the maps. So be able to play that. Now, the reason why I purchased those things, those are games that I played, and I'm more than happy to get an expansion to play the game if it's something that I'm playing. And so those are the 2 things that I bought. So right now, my spending for January is done. I have nothing else that I have planning on buying. So that's good. Also, no Kickstarter backings for me for January. Have nothing on, not even looking at stuff for February. So anyways, that aside, the money thing aside, and hopefully, I don't know, hopefully, I just want to encourage you guys. I'm talking about things that are for me, some of my habits that I'm developing, because it can become a problem for some folks spending too much money. And what happens is we're buying all these games. They're sitting on the shelves being unplayed. They're not doing anything, and they actually become worthless. And so we're misappropriating our funds. So we're just trying to be mindful. I'm sharing with you things that I'm doing with my collection to make it more manageable and actually make the games that you want to play, have my collection with games that I want to play. Have to do my part, because part of the thing is the industry has to wake up to the fact that they can't keep running at the pace they're going. People, it's a perfect example of consumer fatigue. There's so much stuff coming out. I don't, can't keep up with even buying stuff. So, after a while, it's like, you know what? I'm good. I got the games that I want to play. I don't care. So, anyways, off my soapbox there. But I wanted to start talking about the games that hit the table this past week. So I had only got a chance to play 2 games this past week. We played Friday night, and then I played yesterday during the Super Bowl. Both of the games took a while to play. So it was like a one game for the evening or one game for the afternoon. So let's get started. So the first game that we played Friday night, and we played Brass Lancashire. And so, right now there's, ever since Roxley released the new versions of Brass, both versions of the game have really taken off in terms of popularity and stuff like that. So we're seeing, right now, Brass Birmingham, people are going nuts over. You can't even get a copy of it. When I had backed it on Kickstarter, got both of them, the deluxe versions, and early on, I'm like, I don't really need 2 versions of Brass. I really wanted Lancashire, so I had sold off my copy of Brass Birmingham. But I had not had a chance to play Lancashire until Friday night. So, man, I'm going to tell you right now, that game is good, but it is tight. And a really positive thing about me is I'm already thinking about the next time that I play it. What am I going to do different? Because the game actually, it plays over 2 eras. So the first era that you have, you're playing in what's called the Canal era, and you're restricted on the number of industries that you can have in each city. And so but it's cheaper to connect things together. So because you have to be able to have access to certain resources in order to build things. So a lot of things are going to require coal. Well, you're going to have to have access to coal in order to build them. And so you can only have one industry per city in the beginning part of the game, and so you're playing and you're trying to expand this network, and you're trying to sell resources. You have certain buildings, like you have cotton mills that you can build, and you have to be able to have access to either a port, or there's a couple other spaces on the outskirts of the map that will give you access to essentially able to trade, and they would be with like neighboring countries and things, and that's how you're going to make money. And then you also, it's such a super good game. But I was playing the game, and I'm like, man, this is kind of a slow build. I'm not really sure if I'm doing very good. We couldn't really get any ironworks out there because we weren't getting the industry cards or city cards that had access to those things. So it was a slow build, and I had to think about things. I'm like, man, next time I need to make use of being able to get iron from the market to do things, to develop cards. One of the things you can do is develop cards. You use an action, and you use iron to be able to take tiles off of your player board and get to the better ones. So anyways, so the first half was really good. I took the time to let the other people that I was playing with know in advance that we were going to play Brass. So the main people that I'm playing with are my friends Jeff and Sherry and my friend Chris. So the 4 of us played. I printed out player aids for them. Had linked them to Paul Grogan's playthrough so they could watch through it. So anyway, so we made it through the first half of the game. And then what happens is the second half, you have the rail era. And man, that game really picks up then. But what happens in the rail era is you can have more buildings in the same area, in the same city. You can have them, but it's more expensive for you to build a network, because now it's more expensive to build rail system than it was to use canals, because you're essentially just using a ship to move back and forth. Now you're developing this rail system. and it started to get really, really, really tight at the end of the game. And the other thing that happens is if you did not do enough work in trying to get your stuff on the board or get it, onto the board or off of your mat, it's going to be very difficult because you're going to have to waste a lot of actions developing things to get obsolete tiles off there. Because at the end of the Canal era, any buildings that are on the player board, on the board itself, not the player board, on the main board itself, if they're level 1, they all come off the board. They're considered obsolete, and then all the canals come off the board. So it's like you have to start over again. So reminds me a little bit if you've ever played Amun-Re by Reiner Knizia. It's like you play the game, and then you play the game again. And it's very similar that way, but it's really, really tight and just a really, really great game. If you have not had a chance to play Brass, I think you owe it to yourself to try it, because the game itself, like the actual playing the game, is not hard. It's planning and thinking about it, and then the ramifications of if you're doing things right or wrong in this game that really kind of gets you. But man, super, super good. So highly recommend that. But I have one complaint about this version. Everything on the board is dark. So it's not like when you walk by visually, it doesn't really look appealing, and it's kind of hard to, in certain lighting, to make out what the symbols are on the boards for the different industries. I was sitting off to the side of the table. Maybe it was a slight glare or just wasn't going down, but I had a little bit of difficulty, and I kept having to look at the board to see what was on there. I can overlook that for the gameplay experience. All right. Then the second game that we played, this one we played yesterday. We sat down and we played Maracaibo from Alex Pfister. And again, when I had gone over to Jeff and Sherry's house on Friday before we played Brass, they had this set up, and I wasn't really prepared. Didn't know much about the game itself. And so we sat, and they had the game set up, and we sat down and we played a few turns, and it started to make sense. But then Chris showed up, and I'm like, well, we are going to be set up to play Brass. Let's do that. So we went back and we played this yesterday, and this is an excellent, excellent game. But I'm telling you what, this was our first play, but we started at maybe 3 in the afternoon, and we played till 8. We had some other things that were going on there. But, it was a learning game, and some things were like, all right, I'm going to do this. Hold on, I'm not going to do this and stuff. But just thinking through it. So it took a while to play through it. But, man, what a cool game. It's this one, Maracaibo, is really a lot simpler than I thought it was to play. You're going to move around the board, and you're going to visit different spots. You're either going to move to a city location or a village location. The city locations that are on there, you have abilities to make deliveries of goods, and the cards are multi-use. They're either going to be like almost like an occupation card if you've played Agricola, and there's certain cards you're going to pay the cost, you're going to put them into play, and they're going to give you certain benefits. Or you can discard them for resources. So they're one of two things. On the side of the card, there's like 2 different resources. One is going to be used for like a trade good. The other ones are going to be things that you can discard to use to complete quests. So you can hold them in your hand, and then you can put them in play. But you can discard those to make deliveries, and then you have on a player board, you can develop things. They're almost like developing technologies, but you have to unlock them by removing these little brown chips that are on there. So you can do those in the cities, and then you can take the city action. You can move around the board. If you stop in villages, depending upon how many spaces you move determines the number of actions that you can take. And your actions include, like, basically they say buying a card, but it's putting a card on your hand, or they have a little planning area in play, or taking money or discarding your hand to get more money. And then there's other actions that will become available as you develop them on your player board. And then also you have opportunities to complete quests. And then some of the cards that you put on the board are put into play will allow you to put a little figure on the board in one of the villages, and it becomes an assistant. And you go over and you go and visit him. You're going to get certain benefits. So, and there's also an ability to use combat. And the combat is interesting because you're assigning combat points, and you're essentially aligning yourself with 3 different countries. You're either England, France, or Spain. And so, and you're going to move up on these different influence tracks. If you want to see how the game is played, I'm sure if you look up a video of how the game is played. And also, I'll have some images up over on Instagram a little bit later on from the games that I played. But You're going to lap around the board, then you've got scoring. And you do this like 4 times, but over the course of the game, it's really, really, really cool. And we played just the easy no story mode just to get used to the game. And you can play the game either in a story mode or you can play it in a non-story mode. And there's different levels of difficulty. There's easy, medium, and hard. So the next time we're going to try it with medium, we're going to actually put out some of the legacy tiles on the board. So it's going to change the layout a little bit. Looking forward to it. Really, really, really enjoyed that. Fine work by Alex Pfister. Super, super good game. So there's a few of his titles that I really, really dig. And this being one of them. The other one is Mombasa. Those are probably my two favorites. I know a lot of other people are really go nuts over Great Western Trail. That one would probably be in third. And then it's going to trail down with probably Isle of Skye Broom Service. And then I like the major games. And then probably Blackout Hong Kong, and then we get down into stuff like Royal Goods and things like that. So, but anyways, really, really super good game from Maracaibo. So those were the those 2 games were stuff that I got a chance to play. Hey, Daniel, thanks for joining. Yeah, Alex Pfister. His games, like I said, Maracaibo is definitely one you're going to want to check out. So can't wait for the next time that I play. We'll have different cards in play, different city things are going to be in there. So it's going to should be super good. All right. Let's see. What's the other things? Oh, for the most part, I have not been seeking any kind of press copies for games. I have enough games in my collection to work off of, to work with, and still have some outstanding reviews. But I had a couple things trickle in. So one of the games that we're going to be checking out here pretty soon, you'll hear me talking about, is a game called Vian. And this is an interesting game. It's like a pick up and deliver game. It's set in Denmark, but it uses 2 currencies. So you can actually, it's between Denmark and Germany. And so you're going to be able to pick up goods and you can go and sell them. But you've got 2 markets that are going up. So sometimes if the Danish currency is really high, you're going to want to go up and move up there to deliver. If it's the German's currency is better, you're going to want to go down there. So something that I'm looking forward to checking out. This is kind of an interesting one. Show you a thing on the box as to what the map looks like. So this is going to be one that I'm going to be checking out. And then the other one, yesterday was Groundhog Day, and Chrono Corsairs from Tasty Minstrel had showed up, I don't know, about a week and a half ago or so, maybe a little bit longer. And it has, supposedly people are saying it has kind of like this Groundhog Day event thing. So I'm going to have to take a look at this, how this is going. It's got a pirate theme, which I'm not really much into pirates, but we'll give it a go. So those 2 things, look for me to be talking about those in the near future. I've got a couple other things that I'll be talking about. I'm going to pretty much be doing these episodic episodes, talking about things. It's just an easier way for me to talk about board games without having to make separate reviews for everything. So let's see. What else? Okay, so the other thing too is that I have been talking about my collection. If you had seen me posting up over on my Facebook page, I had start off talking about my collection in the first 10 games, and so that got me into the the first part of A. I'm going to wrap up A today, talking about some of the other games in my collection and giving thoughts and seeing what's going to happen with them. So the first one, picking up where we left off, I think we ended up with Agricola, and I'm still kind of on the fence with that one. I have to play it some more. I like the game, but I'm not sure how much it's going to hit the table. So that one's kind of like I'm on the fence with that. But Alhambra, and this is the big box right here, and Alhambra is a game that I really, really, really enjoy. It has, it's a lighter game, and over the course of the game, what you're trying to do is buy these different tiles and put them in play, and they have to fit together in such a way that you can make a walking path back to the center fountain, like the city square. And then there's little walls that you go around there, and walls have to meet up with walls, and you get points for having the longest walls. And what's going to happen is you also get points for having the majorities of these different building types. Well, how you get the building types, there's a market that comes out, 4 different tiles come out, they use 4 different currencies, and you have to use currencies cards in your hand to pay for them. There's perks if you can pay for them with the exact amount of currency cards, like you get another turn and you can keep repeating for a number of times. So, but that's just in the regular base game. And then the big box here that I had traded for it a few years ago. I have all of the expansions 1 through 6, and they all have modules. There's so many different ways to play it. But the base game is really, really good. I mean, I like it enough that 2 years ago when I was at Gen Con, I actually signed up I played in like a mini tournament to play the game. I had a great time with the folks that were there. We just played it a couple weeks ago. I was at Polar Vortex, and I'm looking forward to sharing the game more with my friends and integrating some more of the different expansion modules in there. So that's Alhambra. The next one in my collection is Alien Frontiers. And for a while, this was my favorite game. I'm a big fan of worker placement games, and this is a dice placement game, and I just really like how it works. It's got a little bit of nastiness to it. There's so much stuff for it, and actually in the box I have everything in here. This one I got like a few years ago, and so I have, let me open this up, and you can see like there's little boxes in here that have all of the different cards and things like that, and player pieces and everything else. And then there's like promo cards, and there's I dropped something. And then there's also there's some extra boards, and there's been another expansion, and I'm waiting on the latest promo thing to arrive. I think that one's currently at the printers. But this is just, it uses dice. You're trying to build up your colonies on the board. Here's the back of it. If you're going to look for this one, probably try to find an older version. The 6-fold board, this kind of gets to be a little bit much. This is just a regular quad-fold board. But Alien Frontiers, it's a definite keeper. One of the first games when I was really getting back into the hobby that I was introduced to, and I just really fell in love with the game right away. The next one is Amun-Re. This is a Reiner Knizia game. And I used to have the original version, but I upgraded to this version just because Super Meeple does such a fantastic job with the resin pieces and things like that, that it's just a really good game. Now, you heard me mention this game before when I talked about brass. And so on the back of this, here's the game board. And you see these different little provinces that are here. And you're going to be bidding to build up stuff. Hey, Tom, how are you? Tom Grogan. But in Amun-Re, you're going to be developing these different provinces over and doing improvements on them during, you're going to do it up till there's like the middle of the game. Then what happens is all of those things get auctioned again. So you put in all of this work to build up these things, but you may not necessarily be able to benefit from them because they go up for auction. So you have to weigh your things. Okay, do I build this up now and then just really go hard and heavy to go after it again? Or do I hold off and see what things end up, what I end up with in the second half of the game and really and have to work harder to build it up because maybe somebody else didn't do the work. It's really a really interesting auctioning game. Probably one of my favorite Reiner Knizia games. It may actually be my favorite Knizia game. Really, really good and super well done production value on it. But the one thing with that is you really want to play with the maximum player count because then everything's in play and just makes the game so much smoother. I know that there's an Amun-Re card game that's out. Actually, one of my other friends has it for, they're going to be supposed to be reviewing it for the channel. So we'll see when that comes out. So let's see the next one on my list. Okay, so Arboretum. Oh, by the way, Amun-Re is a keeper, Alien Frontiers is a keeper, Alhambra is a keeper. Now we get to Arboretum, and this is the reprinted version. I have in a kind of a quiver case. I have the original Z-Man one, but I wanted to be able to have The newer artwork is fine, but this is a really interesting tactical card game where you're trying to put cards out and you're trying to score points for the number of trees that you have in your arboretum, but you want to have to have the majority count like on your card values in order to score them. And it's really interesting. It's harder to try to explain it in a video format than it is to actually see it played. So this one here, you know what? I probably don't need 2 copies of Arboretum. I like the original one just fine enough. So this one I may end up putting up for sale. It doesn't take up a lot of space, but I don't really think that I need to have 2 versions of Arboretum. But I wanted to check out the artwork because Beth Sobel does a nice job with that. The other one, got another small card game here. Archaeology, the New Expedition, Archaeology card game. This is from Phil Walker Harding. Just a real neat little set collection game. Plays super fast. This particular one, you have more options for variable setups, unlike the original Archaeology game. Just something fun. This is something that I'm going to hold on to. I've got a little tote with boxes with games that go in there. So this one is a keeper. This is really simple to play. I can sit there and bring this out, play this, teach people who don't really play heavier games to play this one. I'm not so much really into filler games anymore because when I get together, we just try to, we get settled in, we play, and then we're done. We're already all together, really not waiting for anybody to arrive per se. It's always like, hey, you can play a filler game, waiting for other people to show up for game night. No, we're already all there. So but this is just something that I can play casually. I can play this when people come over for vacations, or when I host game days at my house. Then it's fun because you can play a bunch of different games instead of getting locked into one thing all the time. You get to mix and mingle with lots of different folks. All right, the next game, Architects of the West Kingdom. Now this one, this is from Garphill Games, and Garphill Games is most famous for the North Sea trilogy. So you had Shipwrights of the North Sea, Raiders of the North Sea, and Explorers of the North Sea. Raiders of the North Sea is the best one. Shipwrights and Explorers is kind of like so. Now they've moved into these West Kingdom series. So I've played Architects. I have Paladins. I haven't played that. But this is a really interesting game. Uses a worker placement mechanic, but you can kind of take some of your other players, put them in jail. There's some interesting card play in here. It's a really neat game. But my one complaint is not really complaint, but you know, the Miko has done the artwork for all of these games, and every single one of them looks the same. So when you're playing one of the games, it's like you almost have to ask which one is this one, because they all look the same, all the same shape pieces and everything like that. But you know, this is a decent game. This one would be one that I'm going to hold on to, at least for now. If it really came down to if I could only have one title from the Garphill series right now, Raiders of the North Sea is better than this one, in my opinion. But this is a different style of play. But unfortunately, again, with the art style and the font and everything like that, you think that they're all connected, but they're really not. So, but definitely something that you wanna check out. There's a really cool insert for this one that I have. There's I've reviewed a couple of the inserts that were done for this company. In fact, I think I gave one to a friend of mine. But they've upgraded poker chips for the debt tokens and everything like that. So Architects of the West Kingdom is one that's going to stay. Now, something else that has architecture in the name, Architectura. This is one from Hobby World and Arcane Wonders. We played this 3 players, the basic game, and I don't know. That's what I think of that game. I played it one time. I picked it up at Gen Con. It looked really cool. It was cheap and had a play mat for inexpensive. We played the game. It looks cooler than it plays. That's it. You're putting cards out, and you're trying to compare values on there and see like, oh, you might be able to put something over one of the other ones. Nothing. It does nothing. Okay, that's enough for that. The next game that I have, we've got puppies, litter of puppies. My daughter's dogs are here. She's in vet school, and so they're they're kind of playing with each other. So yeah, if you've seen any of my shows, you know it's like Welcome to the Jungle. Anyways, so we have Arena Roma 2. Now this is a two-player game from Stefan Feld. The original Arena was it's a back and forth game. You're playing cards and you use it with dice to be able to do different things. There's some really cool card combos that are in here. The original Arena, I was kind of like, I sold it off to somebody a little, it was a couple years ago. I still held on to Arena Roma 2. I don't ever play this one, so this one's going to be going up for sale or trade or whatnot. I'm going to have to clean out the box because I have some other two-player games in here. I have Lost Cities in here, and I also have, Tides of Madness from Portal Games. So I got two other games in here. I'll just pull those out. This one is going to be going as well. So this is number 2 of ones that are not staying. Then we have the Artemis Project. This was actually my favorite game that released last year. This is another has to do with dice placement or dice displacement. You're trying to develop this colony, and it starts off where everything is under the sea in the depths, and you're trying to get resources to be able to build buildings. And then the second part of the game, you have building things that will be on the surface that are going to give you access to victory points at the end of the game. And you have these little different meeples down here, and they're all different occupations. And how you use your dice is key to this game because some of the areas the dice resolve from lowest to highest. So sometimes you're going to be you want to guarantee yourself some resources, or you want to deprive somebody else of them. You might want to put a lower value dice in there because it shifts everything over, and as you resolve from lowest to highest, your opponent may not get something that's there, or they'll get less of it because there may not be stuff available. But if you end up using all your low dice to do that, your dice are also used to bid for buildings and things like that. You're going to end up using your higher dice and paying more money for some of the building tiles that are out there that you're going to need. So you have to think about that. And then there's also other spaces where you need specific values of dice in order to train your workers in order to get, they start off as this like kind of tan color, but if you want to make them into like engineers or stewards or these other different things, you have to have specific dice. So it's kind of a thinky game how you're going to plan. This game is super, super good. Like I said, this is my favorite game of 2019. And if you like dice, if you like a game that uses dice as a worker placement thing, and you want a little bit of take that, or makes it a little bit thinkier as to how you're going to use them, you're going to want to check out Artemis Project. Then Artists. This is from the this was in the Alea Medium Box Series number 7. This is a Kramer and Kiesling game that goes with this like Knights of the Round Table game. I played this once a few years ago with a friend of mine, and I managed to find a copy, and I don't think I've even had a chance to get it to the table. And by this point now, the game, I think about it, I read the rules and stuff. It just has kind of shown its age. So this one is going to be, this is available for trade. I'm probably going to end up putting it up for sale, but this one is a little bit hard to find because it's out of print. And then wrapping up the A's, the last games are the 3 Azul games. I have all three titles right here. So the original Azul, this one is a keeper. I got a chance to teach this one to my sister. We played it, I might have been Thanksgiving. I think it was Thanksgiving we played Azul. And she is not a game player, but we ended up hitting this one up. We played it. They did really, really good. Super easy to play, super fun, and just the right amount of crunchiness for that anybody can grasp onto it and have a good time with it. But then, then Azul wasn't enough for them. They had to put out this stained glass of Sintra. Now, here's the one that I've owned this one. I have not played this one yet. My friends have played it at game days and stuff like that, and it's on my agenda of things to play. I don't know, for some reason, like moving that glazer around, I don't know. That was the one thing that's been kind of keeping me from playing it. So, but I'm going to make it a point to play this one. And then finally, there is Azul Summer Pavilion, this is probably my favorite one. I really like how this one is. You have a little bit more planning, but it's also not as punishing because you can save tiles from like age to age to be able to, I mean, from round to round. And so you can plan as to how you're going to put these things out. It has an interesting way of using tiles that are wild in order to place things on the board. So, so it seems like in my collection, a lot of the second half of those games are keepers, like for now. And then you know what'll happen? I'll probably end up playing some of those and evaluating those things more, and seeing what's going to stay. But I wanted to be able to share with you guys games that are in my collection, things that I'm thinking about doing with, what's going to stay, what's going to go, my thoughts on games. And you know what, I really don't care what people think. I threw a game on the floor. That's really what I think about it. And so it's going to be, I'll probably end up, if somebody buys games from me and I ship it flat rate, that one's going to be tucked in the box. It'll be a gift for somebody. So maybe somebody else will enjoy it. For me, I didn't. So anyways, what else is going on? Oh, sure. Daniel, what was your question? I can see your things that are on here. So yeah, let me know what you want. In the meantime, while he's asking a question, a couple of other things that are going on. Hey, if you're thinking about sitting through sorting your collection, thinking about games that you want to play, stuff like that. If you ever put music on, this is on the side topic, other things that I do. I'm a big music junkie. Couple album recommendations would be like Screaming for Vengeance, the album from Judas Priest, and also October from U2. Those are a couple a couple albums I've been listening to. Okay, so Daniel asked, what's the game or games that got me into board gaming and when was that? Well, something, when I was a kid, we played games around the house, and I think my first real, I want to say real strategy game would have been Scotland Yard. That was like what, 1983. I think that won the European, at the time they called it European Game of the Year award. And I was just really thought that was kind of cool. One person played Mr. X and it was moving around the board, and you had to determine clues to find out where he was and to be able to track him down. That was one that got me really interested. And then, you know what, my friends had played some of the old games like Fortress America and Axis and Allies, and I think it was called Shogun. They had all these little games with little plastic figures, moving them around the boards. I thought those were really, really cool when I was a kid. And then later on, I didn't have a chance to play games. It wasn't really something that was in my I guess things that I was doing. I was busy working. Then we started having kids, and my wife is not a gamer, so I didn't really think about that stuff. But then if we fast forward into the early part of like 2000, I think it was like 2012 or so, my kids were buying, started buying Pokemon cards and like Magic, but they didn't know how to play. And there was a hobby store that was in town called Dragon's Refuge. And we had gone in there, and I kind of started seeing some of the games that were there, and some of the games that really got me heavy into the hobby would be like Alien Frontiers, deck building games like the DC deck building game. I played some basic like worker placement games. So Lords of Waterdeep was one. Those were the games that kind of got me playing at Carcassonne. Those games really got me hooked. And then as I started playing and exploring more, I started finding some of the other things, some of the other games that they get more advanced, start thinking about more, they really get my brain turning. And so, and then what's my favorite game as of today, and what's my favorite game mechanism? So my favorite game mechanism is worker placement, whether it's just using workers on the board or using dice placement. And my favorite game as of today, so, all right, this is going to be kind of funny because I like some of these really, really crunchy games, but you know what? My favorite game, Ticket to Ride. I think that Ticket to Ride, just the core mechanisms of that game is, I'm not going to say perfect, but near perfect, because when you can take a game like that and have so many different variations, different maps, make slight rule changes between the different maps, yet still stay true to that core mechanism and all of them work, that would be it. And every time, that's probably the game that I have played the most, like physical copies. But I love Ticket to Ride. I love the every time that I play it, no matter who I play it with, we have such a great time with it. Trying to outsmart your opponents and outtime them by trying to steal routes from under them just makes it so much fun. And then here as a follow, I'll even go say like my second favorite game, one that I love playing would be Seven Wonders. So those two games are probably like my favorites. Like if somebody said right now, hey, do you want to play Seven Wonders? Set it up, let's go. Because like now I can play it so fast. And with that, I have the app for that for Seven Wonders. And so between physical games and playing on the app, I know for a fact I've played Seven Wonders over 200 times. So really, really love that game. But yes. So, anyways, so you guys who are watching, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. You know what? In the comments below, list some of your favorite game mechanisms. What are some of the games that you're playing? What are you doing with your game collection? Are you thinking about cutting down your collection? Are you thinking about streamlining things? What are some of the things that you're planning on maybe wanting to add to your collection on the horizon? I'm curious to see. Let's talk about this stuff. Also, for those of you who are watching solely through YouTube. If you haven't checked out my Facebook page, I have a To the Table Gaming with Family and Friends over on Facebook. I do some Facebook Lives over there. And also make sure to check me out on Instagram, To the Table Review. I post a lot of images over there. I use some hashtags on there, hashtag board game snapshots. And the other one now that I'm doing is hashtag Insta opinions, all one word, Insta opinions, where what I'm doing is posting up images of some of the games and giving a brief overview or brief thoughts of what I played at the game, like some impressions about what I think of some of those. So, anyways, appreciate you guys watching. Next week, we will continue talking about things that I've played, things that we're going to continue going through my collection. I know next week, because I don't have a lot of titles with B in the name, we're going to cover those. But the time will probably be different. I've been off of work for the past couple weeks because we've been slow in terms of projects getting started and things like that. But I'm actually going back to work on Wednesday, so the next one will probably air on. Do it on a Tuesday because starting tonight and for the next 9 weeks on Mondays, we are doing. My wife and I are doing a thing called Financial Peace University, and it is a money management, money budgeting thing that's being put on by our church. So looking to apply some principles there. So anyways, love you guys all. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.